At its very best, documentary film is revelatory, even in the case of films where the subject may seem to be very common and very well known. This morning, we are talking with Timothy Greenfield-Sanders and Carol Alt about their film About Face and the cultural phenomenon of supermodels and the revelatory discussions behind that topic. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us.
Okay.
Timothy, you were in many ways an architect of this phenomenon as it occurred over time, and here you are in some ways deconstructing or at least shining light on many parts of the topic of the time of the creation of supermodels.
Well, you know, I went to a party about 2 years ago, dragged to it, and I literally double parked my car, and I walked in, and there were all these beautiful women from the 70s and 80s who were friends of a hairdresser friend of mine, and Carol's. And I looked around, I thought, what an interesting group of people that no one's really done anything about. These women of a certain age who had extraordinarily important in terms of beauty in our culture. And I started to think maybe it's a photo. Here we are 2 years later, it's a documentary film that not only includes people like Carol and Chita Machado and Beverly Johnson, but expands it all the way to Carmen, who's 81 years old and still modeling.
I thought it was very apropos that in this discussion that takes place of age and how that is a factor in modeling, that one of the leading people that you spoke with in your film was one of the top examples of beauty as it continues to be defined as aging.
Yeah, well, you know, I think I wanted to make a film about women, and extraordinarily accomplished women, and women who had been something very, very powerful at one point, and what they did with that life, how they reinvented themselves. Carol has acted in 68 films. And, you know, other Isabella Rossellini as well, all these other people in the film went beyond that moment, that heightened moment of a model.
But I have to disagree on one thing, and respectfully, it's not really about aging. I mean, the way I look at this film is it's really a history of the world in this bubble of a moment that goes back to the beginning with Carmen and the history of World War II, what models will look like. Models were used, the title was used to cover over being a whore or a prostitute, and then it went on to being so accepted in society that we were lifted up above other women in the moment that you were the #1 in the world, to the point where you were able to launch other things. I have a skincare line, I have a jewelry line. So it was never really, to me, when I looked at the film, it was never about aging. What Timothy was so brilliant at capturing, and I'm saying this regardless of the fact that he's sitting next to me, and I love him dearly because he didn't just do this about aging. This is really, as the title said, it's about face. It's about what you do with the face time that you have with the audience, but also how fashion has created history, how we responded to deep despair like World War II and depression, and came out of it in the glory and the beauty of the art of fashion. It's an incredible film. It really is, and it has really, you know, aging is such a small part of it.
You know, if you look at the films I've made, and this is my 3rd film at Sundance, it's my 6th film for HBO, they're all about accomplishment, whether it's The Blacklist, which was about extraordinarily highly achieved African Americans, the Latino List, about Latinos as well, and even the porn star film I did, those people were the best at what they did. Indeed. And it was, you know, it's all, for me, I'm interested in how people take their lives and control them and do something powerful with it. And you look at these women, and to me, they're an inspiration.
Indeed. Carol, if you would talk a little bit about what your initial reaction was to hearing that Timothy was planning this film, and what you could contribute in terms of your reflections.
Well, Timothy told you his version of the story of what happened, and my version of the story was I got a phone call, and they said they were shooting a cover of a magazine. Did I want to come with? I asked who else was there. They gave Patty Hansen and Kim Alexis and Christy Brinkley, Dale Haddon. So there were 7 girls in New York. I was like, of course. I mean, what an elite group of girls. Absolutely, I want to be there. And I wandered over to the studio one morning, and he was having this huge, enormous shoot going on. And in the middle of all of this shooting for this cover, he was doing B-roll. And he was so cavalier about it. He's like, I'm just shooting some B-roll. I mean, I went up, as you see in the film, in curlers. Oh, okay, so B-roll, you know, curlers in my hair, half my face made up. I mean, that's most of my life spent like that. So I went up and did this, and then the cover was knocked because of some world issue that happened. And Timothy wrote me an email. He said, the cover was knocked, but I think I'm going to expand the B-roll footage that we took into something, because listening to you women talk just so inspired me into creating something different out of this. I'm disappointed about the cover, yes, but I'm so inspired by this that I think what I can do with this film and how I can expand it with the inclusion of other amazing women who weren't at the shoot will bring about that cover again. And now people are fighting over to have that cover because this film is, I mean, it's the talk of Sundance. We don't have enough tickets. Everybody's knocking down the door to get into the theater to see this. Me for one, because I only was able to see half of it. So I'm really, I mean, it was just stunning. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Then the computer fell, and I was so disappointed. But I mean, it was just, I could not take my eyes off of what he had created, because it's so different than anything else out there about supermodels, which to me is so completely boring. Supermodels are completely boring, but not the way that Timothy has created them.
I was just going to say that I think we grew up with these women, and that's what's so powerful about the film, is that Carol walked around Sundance yesterday, and women were just stopping her on the street and saying, I admire you so much. I'm so excited just to see you. And, you know, that's
that was exciting for me, too.
But that's multiplied by all these women in this film, that they all meant something, that they were the definition of beauty. And I think with the focus on fashion and glamour and, you know, all of this today, where the fashion business is so gigantic, there's an important film here about these other women.
And their stories. I mean, it's a lot of backstory. I mean, when you see a woman that is projected as beautiful in a magazine, you have no clue that behind that she's a quivering mess, that, you know, she's uncomfortable, or she's got her doubts, or that she was a gawky 15-year-old that somehow somebody saw something beautiful in. Right. And people always make the mistake that beautiful women think they're beautiful. I was the clumsiest kid. I was fat. I was not the girl they asked out on a Friday evening. I babysat every weekend. And when somebody said, "Oh wow, you make the most amazing model," I was like, "That's my job. My job is to make clothes look good." It wasn't about me being beautiful. It was about making the clothes look good. And every woman in this film has a backstory very similar. And it was such a revelation to me to hear that I wasn't the only one suffering like that, that was afraid that this was going to end any moment, or that somebody was going to just figure out I wasn't beautiful, or that I had a flaw. You try so hard to be perfect, and it's a very imperfect world, and it's a very hard world to be perfect in, because everybody's always knocking you because they think you think you're perfect. So it's really amazing.
It occurs to me that, in a way, what the two of you are saying is that this icon idea of supermodel wasn't just about beautiful women on the outside, but this accomplishment is that the most beautiful women in the world were the women that were also beautiful on the inside.
You almost had it there, Terry. It wasn't about face.
It wasn't about face. I would have felt so much better if I had gotten that myself, Carol.
I thought you were going there. So
I was close. I'm a little fatigued, and so I didn't quite get there, but thank you.
But that's why the title is so brilliant. Sheila Nevins from HBO, I mean, what a brilliant title. Because she could have gone, average with Supermodel Then and Now, Ageless, Aging, but About Face just really says it all. I mean, Timothy just did a brilliant film. Brilliant. He can't say it because he's sitting here. I love
just sitting here listening.
Basking in the glory.
I think that there's so much beneath the surface of these beautiful women, and I think that's what the film brings out. And the film covers race and AIDS and so many issues, self-confidence, all the stuff beneath the surface of being beautiful. Yes. And the insecurity and the lack of self-confidence, all of these things that interested me. So it was a lot of fun for me to just sit there and ask the questions I always wanted to ask of a supermodel. Were you confident when you were 15? Paulina laughed her head off. I said, are you kidding? Of course not. I was trying to drink too much and trying to be cool. And all this stuff. I didn't know who I was.
By the way, Pauline was always one of my favorites. I just thought she was so beautiful, and we worked together. She was a contemporary, so you know she seemed always to me to be so powerful and confident and out there. And to hear that, when I heard that in the film, I was stunned.
My biggest,
Isabella Rossellini too.
My biggest regret about getting into Sundance has been that I had to stop making the movie.
Yes,
that
it could have gone on.
I would have loved to have just picked up the phone and called another
Should be a series.
fabulous woman and said, "Can you come
Great.
in? I'd love to talk to you," because it was so interesting for me. And then editing it, Ben Gray did a fabulous job. It's beautifully edited. You know, searching for the old pictures is a very difficult thing. Luckily, as a photographer, I know all the photographers, so I have a little in, and I was able to get pictures that some people can't get, or we were very lucky. It's hard work.
The archive work on the film
Yeah.
is amazing too. Pictures back to the 50s and 40s. It's beautiful.
Timothy, Carol, I feel similarly. I wish that we could continue on. And we have a short format interview today.
Pleasure.
Gracious thanks to
Thank
both
you.
of you for
I'm
coming
sorry.
in.
The left hand.
So very nice to see you. Fantastic film. We look forward to following it more. Thank you for coming in to see us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
About Face.